Hello everybody and welcome back to another Sam's training videos. Today we're going to talk Alpha Strike, which Sam, me, knows nothing about, so I'm not going to do any talking other than asking a few questions. Joining me today is Jesty. Jesty, go ahead and say hi.
Hello. I also don't know anything about Alpha Strike.
And then our Alpha Strike professional that we have to talk about list building is Comrade. Comrade, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey there, I'm Comrade. I'm have many games of Alpha Strike under my belt. I came in third at the last Southern Assault, which is happy to be second loser or third loser. No, it'd be second loser, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Second loser at Southern Assault. I run events down here in Houston, Texas, at the Forge. We play a lot of Alpha Strike because we're able to get through games faster, and we have a lot of experience building Alpha Strike lists and making sure that they're successful in tournaments and just in pickup games, knowing what your list is able to do. So excited to share some of that with you guys today.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And like I said before, we're just going to let you go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. So when it comes to Alpha Strike list building, in order for a list to perform well, you have to know what you want it to do. You want to know what the components for it to do. So when we're talking about MRC, let's talk about MRC first. So MRC is one of the formats that is out there for Alpha Strike. You've got WolfNet, you've got BTC. I prefer MRC just because it gives a lot more flexibility to TOs for what they want to run. The MRC Alpha Strike overview is probably going to be listed in the description of the video, but I want to share sort of how the list building works. So for an MRC event, there are a few core rules here that every MRC event is going to have specific units that'll be allowed, like battle mechs, omni-mechs, land air mechs, proto-mechs, battle armor, combat vehicles, infantry. So that's what you can use. Some events may restrict it below that, but those are typically what you're going to be working with. The other thing we're going to need to bear in mind here is how the rule of 2 works for MRC. So for Southern Assault, WolfNet, a few other formats, the rule of 2 works a little differently, where you can only have 2 of the same chassis, but you can't have the same 2 of the same variant. In MRC, the entire list building is based on formations, which is how Alpha Strike list building works in the first place. We're going to talk a lot about formations here in a minute, but you can have 2 of a chassis per formation. They can be the same chassis, same variant. They can be different variants, whatever. So the example here is 2 Warhammers. So I can have 2 WHM 7Ks, and that's fine. Or I can have a 7K and an 8K. But I can only have those 2 Warhammers. Now, in another lance, I can again have 2 Warhammers. This isn't something that I would recommend, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. 2 to 5 formations, minimum of 8 units, maximum of 30 units for an entire force. The sweet spot for MRC I've found is 3 formations and up, and we'll talk about that in a second. So these are the basic things, the 2 big things that we need to keep in mind when we're building a list for MRC. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this tab. So the fun thing about MRC is that typically your TO is going to tell you what objectives you have going into a tournament packet. So you're going to know ahead of time what objectives you're going to have to go into. So you'll know what you're going to need to accomplish. That's going to affect how you're going to build your list. So let's say, and I've got my Alpha Strike rulebook right here. Actually, you know what, Sam, why don't you pick 3 objectives for us for a theoretical event.
So I hit mute so that you guys wouldn't hear a couple things that I was doing, and then I started talking, forgetting that I was on mute. Like I
Beautiful.
said, F it, we'll do it live. So, when you say 3 objectives, do you mean 3 separate objective missions, like King of the Hill,
Yeah,
Domination?
3 separate objective missions.
Sure.
Yeah, just from the rulebook.
Wait, there's missions in the rulebook?
Oh, you guys didn't know that. All right, let me.
Did we not clarify at the beginning that we don't know anything about Alpha Strike?
Oh,
Yeah,
fair enough.
I've never
you guys
read
did
through the
clear
Alpha
that.
Strike rulebook all the way.
Oh shoot. Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep talking a little bit while I pull down the Alpha Strike rulebook off of my file server. Yeah. So in the Alpha Strike rulebook, in my experience, and most of the MRC missions have come straight from the back of the Alpha Strike rulebook. So it's a good resource to use. Yes, I want to send a message on the subject. Well, it's a good thing it's a good thing I brought that up because there are a couple other things that MRC uses that are in the scenario page. While we wait for that, I want to share a little bit about master unit list. Okay, so I'm gonna have the Alpha Strike Commanders Edition up. This is the 5th printing. So if you're watching this video in the future, 6th printing is about to come out. So some of the rules I referenced may have changed or may have been errated out. So a lot of people don't know this, but in the Commanders Edition, there is a whole list of scenarios and mission rules at the back, towards the back of the book. So starting page 126, all the way through to page 135 are mission types. And what you're going to see most of the time are going to be variations on this mission type. Some formats have their own missions that, wouldn't really translate well to MRC or may need some finagling. And I'm thinking really about just the bunkers mission from Wolfnet. That would be a little wonky. But MRC uses a couple of rules from scenarios that are important, and they can affect how you write your list. So the first one is forced withdrawal. Forced withdrawal in Classic has a lot of specific situations that put a unit in forced withdrawal in Classic. I know it's like 2 engine hits, all your torsos are open to structure. You're missing 2 limbs or something like that. I play Classic. I'm not a super expert on Classic, so you guys can check me on that.
I just do whatever Megamech tells me.
Oh, fair enough. So, whenever the Megamech says your unit has a little black pip next to it. So for forced withdrawal, which is important for scoring in Alpha Strike, a unit has no armor remaining, has been reduced to half its structure value rounded up. If it possesses only 1 point of structure, you're in retreat as soon as you lose all your armor. So something like a Fire Moth. To be clear, if you take 1 hit with a Fire Moth, you're in forced withdrawal. More than likely, the Fire Moth's going to take more than 1 hit. The unit has been reduced to a damage value 0 for all medium and long range attacks. This does not apply if the unit began the scenario with a damage value of 0 at medium and long range. The last one is if a unit has been immobilized through damage, critical, or motive hit effects. Though crippling damage plays a lot into scoring scenarios for MRC, because you have your primary, did you win the objective score? And then after that, it's how much of the enemy's army did you kill? That includes, were they crippled? Were they straight up dead? Did they make it off the board? So we're going to pick 3 scenarios today. So we're going to pick stand-up fight, capture the flag, but we're going to do the many flags variation, and King of the Hill, just the first 3 I see. But we're going to do domination for King of the Hill, because spoilers, these are the missions that we're going to be running at Warzone in September, plus 1 more. So our 3 missions right now are going to be stand-up fight, capture the flag, King of the Hill, domination. Let's just walk through these missions real quick. So for stand-up fight, we're just killing the crap out of each other. So it's going to be fairly straightforward. We want a list that can effectively apply damage and withstand return fire. So we're going to want to think about heavy mechs, assault mechs, mechs that can deal a lot of damage. It can also take a little bit of punishment as well. For capture the flag, for many flags, it's a capture the flag scenario. You're picking up a flag and you're trying to bring it over to your own side. The difference you'll have an objective score zone, which is essentially a goal. You got to go out and get your opponent's flag. Bring it back to your side. So for many flags, the big difference here is that there are 3 flags on the map for each side to capture, 1 per side in the deployment zone, 1 in the middle. We're gonna need mechs that are mobile, they can move around. We're looking like 20-inch movement, 16, 18-inch movement, just to be able to run out, grab those objectives, and make it back to the opponents, make it back to your side. And then King of the Hill. King of the Hill scenario, we're going to have an objective zone in the middle of the map. Oh wait, no, we're doing domination. So in this variation of the King of the Hill scenario, the map is divided into sectors. The center is an objective marker which must be taken and held. This is not timed. Instead of racing the clock, it concludes at the end of any turn where all markers have been captured by one side or another. So we're going to want enough forces that we can spread out across the map and be able to hold all 4 objectives. So knowing what our objectives are now, we can now go into this. We can go into Master Unit List and Jeff's Battletech tools to be able to throw a list together. So in this theoretical event, we're going to stay with the Nashville standard of 500 PV Jihad era. If you haven't used Master Unit List before, it's a fantastic resource. I'll give you just a quick tour of the site. There's the homepage. You can see they've got some units featured and some news. What I typically do is I pick a faction. If you don't know anything about me, I am a avowed Draconis Combine Mustard Soldiery Warrior. So we're going to be building a Drac list today. Right here you can pick from pretty much any faction that has ever existed in the Battletech timeline. So you've got the Republic of the Sphere, St. Ives Compact, you've got Scorpion Empire, Rimworld's Republic, you've got Kellhounds, Wolf's Dragoons, Star League Royal. You've got sources here if you want to pick from a specific source book, and it'll show pretty much every source book under the sun, including my favorite combat manual, Karita. You see all the units that were included in that combat manual. A lot of these are uniques, so we're not going to need to worry about that. So one of the functions of the Master Unit List site that I see people ask about is, how do I look up for units that have a specific ability in Alpha Strike? You can. So it's a little counterintuitive. You do have the Force Builder here on Master Unit List, and it's very functional. So I can search for a Wolverine, and I can add a Wolverine 6K. I can add, it's not going to show me any abilities, all it's going to give me is armor, internal, short, medium, and all the damage values. But it's not going to tell me if it has melee, it's not going to tell me if it has what jumping movement it has. So it's a very basic Alpha Strike Force Builder. It's functional if you know what you're looking for. But for me, it builds up screen clutter a lot, so I use Jeff's, but we'll get to that in a minute. I got off on a tangent there. We're talking about how do I look up an ability for Alpha Strike? So if you top of the page, you click this orange search button. It's going to take you to this page. What did we say? 500 PV Draconis Combine, right? Jihad era. You can set some filters here on the left, and it'll help you figure out what you want to do. So with our objectives, stand up fight, capture the hill, king of the hill. Okay. I'm going to want a force that's fairly fast, but can still apply a decent amount of damage. So I'm going to fall back on old reliable for me, the Nodachi. Before we do that, I want to build a list that focuses on melee. So let's look here. These are basic filters. It'll have your PV, your roles that you're looking for. You have technology level, or technology base. It has your rules base. We're just going to check everything up until unknown, because I don't think the MRC allows unknown. It has all of your types. I can filter to battle mech, combat vehicle, infantry, protomech, and I think that's it. Technically industrial mech, but I'm not including those in the list. I can search for specific source books. We're not going to do that. Make sure I got those saved. Factions. So since I'm searching for Draconis Combine Force, I'm going to search first for Draconis Combine, Inner Sphere General. So for all those great houses, all those Inner Sphere states, you're going to search the state name as well as Inner Sphere General.
So do you have to put in Inner Sphere General? It's not included
Yes.
when you search? Oh, okay.
It is. It is not. It is. The Inner Sphere General list is separate from the Great House list. Just like if I want to build a Jihad era, let's pick on Clan Wolf. Clan Wolf is technically an IS clan. So if I want to do Clan Wolf, it'll only show me mechs. If I search right now, it's only going to show me mechs specific to Clan Wolf. I would need to add IS Clan General to give me the full Clan Wolf availability. And then for mercenaries, I would need to follow up with Carbon and Warning on this one. I don't know if I want to build like a Kellhounds Lance, or Kellhounds list. If you pull from just Kellhounds, or if you pull from Kellhounds and Mercenary. I will leave that up for the peanut gallery to decide. For Warzone, I'm allowing people who are building Kellhounds to either pull from Kellhounds or Mercenary availability. And then same goes for periphery states. So if I want to build a Marion Hegemony list, I'd have to check Marion Hegemony and Periphery General. So the general list is not included when you search the faction. Just to demonstrate here, I'm going to select Availability Era Jihad. Production Era and Availability Era are very different. Production Era is when was that unit in factory production. So if that unit wasn't being built in the Jihad, but there were enough of them for the Draconis Combine to have lying around, it will not show up, which is why I usually leave Production Era unchecked, as long as the Availability Era is what counts. For subtypes, you have here, we can filter, we'll come back to that. But just to demonstrate how the faction works, you know, I have 606 units available to me right now with just Draconis Combine checked. I add Inner Sphere General, I've got 1,182. Let's go ahead and just jump in. Let's throw something in there. Alright, so we got 739 battle mechs available to us. So we have quite the armory. We got a lot to pick from here. So to start off, let's talk about, I mentioned I want to build a melee focused list. At the top under Alpha Strike, I can search by specific abilities. So in this case, I'm going to add MEL, and as you can see, I've built a list like this before. You can search MEL, and that'll filter it to just units with the melee ability. Notice how our availability here has gone down to 21 units. And here we are. This is our melee. These are all the units that the Dracs have access to that have a melee weapon. Could be a sword, hatchet, whatever. Now, I like to get the most out of my melee unit, so I like to add TSM. Notice how, again, it brings the list much shorter. One thing you got to watch out for is unique units. So MRC does not allow uniques. I'm pretty sure the Shin Hatamoto is a unique, sure enough, so we won't be able to include that in the list. But everything else should be fair game. Hop over to the actual list construction. So I would recommend everyone when they're building a list to use Jeff's Battletech tools. It's going to be linked in the description. This is the Alpha Strike roster on the home page. So if you go from the home page, you'll have your Alpha Strike roster. You click that link, it'll bring you over here. What Jeff's does that I had to figure out myself when I was back in Tennessee was Jeff's sanity checks formations, and that's the toughest part about Alpha Strike. Now, formations, I just threw that word in there. Formations are, you build a force around your formations in Alpha Strike. So we have our three objectives: stand a fight, capture the flag, king of the hill, right? These formations that we pick are going to help us accomplish those objectives. And we got to be a little smart about how we do it. Let's go through formation types real quick before we go any further. We've got our Battle Lance. Battle Lance is probably one of the most popular and reliable lances out there. What it does is it gives you the number of units in your formation plus 2 points of the lucky special pilot ability that can be used by the entire formation. So in layman's terms, a lance gets, if you have 4 mechs in it, 6 rerolls on attack rolls, which you can use throughout the game. The only restriction is, I think, one mech can only ever use 4. Yeah, a mech can only ever reroll 4 times per scenario. So I'm sure we've all been there, where we had a roll that was, you know, this is going to change the game. It's gonna change the flow of the game. You need this roll to hit, and you roll 1 under. The Battle Lance helps you mitigate that. The dice working against you. You see here there are specific requirements for the formation. In this case, 50% of the standard Battle Lance must be size 3 or higher. If it's a vehicle formation, the size 3 units must also be pairs of the same vehicle model. 3 units in a Battle Lance must also be any combination of Brawler, Sniper, or Skirmisher unit types. We're going to come back to that. Then you have variations on the Light Battle Lance. Light, Medium, Heavy Battle Lance. All these bonus abilities are the same as the Battle Lance. Next you have the Assault Lance. The Assault Lance is powerhouses of any force make up for their reduced speed. 3 units in a basic Assault Lance must be size 3 or higher. Obviously you have, if you're looking for heavy mechs, they can't have any lights in here. So the Assault Lance picks between the Demoralizer, the Multitasker SPAs. unless this is going to change for the 6th printing, I will say the Demoralizer SPA used to be really good. It got nerfed pretty heavily, so I would not recommend taking the Demoralizer SPA right now. The Multitasker SPA basically lets you split your fire, so that's good. Assault Lance has one variation, the Fast Assault Lance. They have specific requirements here. It's a little different. The bonus is a little bit different from the basic Assault Lance. Striker Cavalry Lance, we're going to include one of those today. They've got a minimum ground move of 10 or 8 jump. The whole idea of a Striker Lance is these are fast mechs that get in and out. They're your fast ones, fast boys or girls. And I can go through all these. The other one that we're going to probably use, I'm going to build for 3 specific lances today. I'm going to build for a Command Lance, a Fire Lance, and a Recon Lance. And I'm going to pause here because I know that you held a poll. MRC announcements.
Yes. So the 3 questions that I polled that got responses, coming in third was the War Crimes option. What are the best formation bonuses to pair up? The second place, the Tractor option, got what is the first thing you think of when building a list? And then the number 1 option, the Coffee option. What is the biggest lesson you have learned in your time building lists?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the best formation bonuses to pair up. There are a couple of bonuses, because I knew there was one about formations. There are a couple of formations that pair very well together. The first one is the Fire Lance and the Recon Lance. They are like bread and butter. The Fire Lance, specifically, we're talking about the Fire Support Lance. What you do is you get 3 units in this formation that possess indirect fire. At the beginning of each turn, up to half the Fire Support Lance may receive the Oblique Attacker special pilot ability. Basically, what this means is you have, I think it's like a -2 or something ridiculous. Go to page 98 just to fact check that.
For Oblique Attacker? Yeah, you don't need a spotter in addition to getting a -1. So not having the spotter gets rid of a +1. And then I think the -1 gives you the total of -2.
So the Oblique Attacker receives a -1 target number modifier for indirect attacks, using the IF special ability and make indirect fire attacks without a friendly spotter. So if you use the indirect fire, you trade the -1 for a +2, which replaces any and all spotter-related modifiers. Which is basically you're shooting as if you're firing as if you have a spotter, but they're firing, which isn't bad. What the Oblique Attacker does is it mitigates the typical +1 you would take for an indirect fire attack, because it doesn't get rid of the +1. It just, it cancels it out. Because you're not good. It's not like I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. Indirect fire attacks, you take a +1 to the shooting. The Oblique Attacker adds a -1, which cancels it out. It doesn't eliminate the IF1, and you get an additional -1 on top of that. The reason it pairs well with the Recon Lance is because you get the forward, you can take Eagle Eyes, Forward Observer, or Maneuvering Ace. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Forward Observer allows you to shoot and still spot without Forward Observer is a warrior who's finally honed direction sense, keen eyesight, and intelligence have combined into a talent for hyper-accurate artillery direction. You can serve as a spotter for multiple artillery attacks. Yep, if the Forward Observer makes its own attacks, any indirect attacks it spots for, do not take the target number modifier for the spotter attacking. So typically, if the spotter doesn't attack, if the spotter does their own attack, the same turn they're spotting for a target, that indirect fire attack is going to take a +2 on their shooting, which hurts. That can make the difference. Now your Recon Lance can actually participate in combat and still spot. They don't have to spot the same target they're attacking. So these two lances go together really well. The way I would play it is I would have my Fire Support Lance park in the back of the map and just stand still. As long as they're not threatened, and you're able to have a bodyguard lance to just keep cover from them, keep fast mechs from getting up in their face, they can just sit in the back, take a -1 for standing still the entire game, a -1 for Oblique Attacker, and the Recon Lance can go around painting targets, pointing at guys they want to shoot, and they're just a very nasty fire support unit. There's a guy here in Houston who swears by this combo, and I've been on the receiving end enough to tell you it's pretty deadly. The next lance that pairs really well is the Battle Lance and the Command Lance. What the Command Lance does is you get a, just to speak very practically here, Command Lance gives you a reroll for initiative rolls. So it's a reroll that can be popped every other turn. So it can only be done once every 2 turns, I believe is the specific. Yeah, you get the you pick a unit that's the commander in the Command Lance. He gets Tactical Genius SPA. That reroll can happen once every 2 turns, yeah. The other thing the Command Lance does is you can assign an additional 2 SPAs to other units in the force. So I've got a Command Lance here on Jeff's Battletech tools that's for a C3 list. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop that in. Nope, not what I want to do.
Oh, quick question, real quick, Comrade. When it comes to building formations, let's say I wanted to play a clan. Clans don't usually use lances, they use stars. Would I have to make my formations 5 units instead of 4?
Yes, so for MRC you do have to build out to a star. So you're going to have less formations to work with, but you're gonna have the firepower to back it up. I've seen some pretty nasty clan lists from MRC. When it says Command Lance, that is interchangeable with Star, Level 2, whatever you got. So that's at the beginning of the page. I'm glad you asked that. At the beginning of the force building section, it gives you a step-by-step list on looking up formations, creating formations, Lances, Stars, and Level 2s. It sort of walks you through it. You know, if you're a Comstar or Wabi, you got to have a 6 units per formation. Stars, you're aiming for 5. So the important thing about a formation, and sort of where clans have a little bit of a step up here, clans have a bit of a step up everywhere, but in order for you to receive a formation bonus, you have to have at least 3 units in the unit. That applies during the game, meaning that if your formation loses 2 mechs, and you have 4 mechs in the formation bonus goes away. For clans, you'd have to lose 3 mechs. For a level 2, you'd have to lose 4 mechs. As long as you have 3 units in the formation, you receive the bonus abilities that you would have to start the game. Yeah, so I have a Command Lance here. This is a 500 PV C3 Lance. And we're just going to build a basic Lance, but right here, I have the bonuses that are available. I can build as a Battle Lance or a Command Lance. In this case, I'm going to build it as a Command Lance. I would put the Tactical Genius Force Commander on the Tai Show, because it is a command mech. It's got 2 C3 Masters. It's for fluff reasons, I'm going to put it there. Then for Combat Intuition, I'm going to put that on the Wolverine and the Marauder. But I can pick between Antagonizer, Bloodstalker, Eagle Eyes, Marksman, Multitasker. I like Combat Intuition because it's simple, and it's a very powerful SPA. As long as you win initiative, any unit with Combat Intuition can perform its entire turn out of initiative step from the rest of the group. So, for example, I win initiative with this, and I choose to pop Combat Intuition on the Marauder and the Wolverine. The Marauder and the Wolverine will immediately complete their moving and shooting before anything else is resolved, and the effects will apply immediately. So it's possible to just straight up kill something completely out of initiative step. That being said, that's it. They don't get shooting again when it comes around to shooting phase. They do their whole turn right then and there. So that's a very powerful one. It pairs well with Battle Lance because the Battle Lance gets those rerolls. So you can do a 1-2 punch. Of course, it depends on how the initiative rolls go. You can do a 1-2 punch where the turn before you soften up a formation with your Battle Lance and the Command Lance. The following turn, you win initiative, use Combat Intuition, and finish them off before they can return fire the following turn. When I talk about, what do you want to do with your listing, you have to think about what kind of tactics you're going to be using, what kind of sneaky Draconis Combine tricks are you going to be using. So I'll go ahead and clear these out for the purposes of this exercise.
Yeah, one thing I noticed looking at the formations is that some of the formations let you pick which mechs gain the ability right then and there in that turn, and some of them you have to pick at the beginning of the game. That's something to keep an eye on.
That's a very good call out. A lot of the fire lances you pick at the beginning of the turn. In some cases, you'll just be like, look, if I had a fire lance with 2 longbows in it and a catapult and a marauder, I'd be like, all right, the longbows are going to have the sniper SPA every time, and you can declare it like that. But if you kill one with the longbows, you have to pick somebody else. As long as it's clear, as long as it is clear to your opponent who has those abilities, you're golden. What I find that trips people up sometimes is they forget to declare, or they don't declare, and then they say, oh, the longbow has it. Well, you didn't declare it. If you didn't declare it, you didn't get it. For the command lance, there's command lance. Yeah, for the command lance, you have to declare those at the beginning of the game, and it's there for the entire game. For the striker lance, you have to declare it at the beginning of the game. I would encourage everyone to read through the formations. I know we're MRC. I know that's a 4-letter word. But read the book and understand what the expectation is for those formation rules. I'll tell you right now, if someone doesn't declare who has an SPA and chooses at a specific time, the longbow does it, like, look, that can result in the TO ruling against you. So the best thing to do is just always be verbose, always tell your opponent, make sure nothing is unclear. We'll pop back over to the actual list. So we have our 3 objectives. Just to sort of bring it back, we have our 3 objectives: stand up, fight, capture the flag, king of the hill. So I want a mobile force that can apply and withstand a lot of damage. I talked about the Nodachi. I love the Nodachi. I could talk about the Nodachi for hours. What it does really well in Alpha Strike is the base Nodachi model is very efficient for its points. It's a 37-point heavy mech that can move 10 inches, so it's got TMM of 2, and then with TSM on, it can move 12 inches. And with TSM on, it does 5 damage in melee versus 3 damage base and short range. So with the Nodachi, you want to get it into melee range as quickly as possible. I'm going to start off here with my first lance. I'm going to add 2 Nodachis, because why not? 1, 2. Right now I can already see that I have available formation bonuses. I want to build this to be a battle lance, so I'm going to select that. Now, the Nodachis have very average damage at medium range. They have 3 damage, which isn't bad, but it's not a lot. I want to add a unit that can keep up with the Nodachi and still apply a decent amount of damage. So we're going to come back here. We're going to delete the 2 abilities. We have a whole lot of stuff coming at us here. One of the cool things you can do with Master Unit List, and you're going to be alternating between these 2, is you can order by PV, you can order by size. What we're going to do here is we're going to order by PV, because I want to keep this formation where we talked about 500 PV. I want to keep this formation under 150. If I can do that, I can scale stuff up later or have larger formations elsewhere. So I've got everything ordered here. In order to keep it under 150, I'm going to have to keep my additions to around 25-30 points. I like the Wolf Trap. The Wolf Trap is a fun little Draconis Combine mech. And I see the Phoenix Hawk 1K. I think the 2K isn't that much more expensive. Oh, there it is. So the Wolf Trap has got 12-inch movement, 3 damage, so he can keep up with the Nodachis when they're at full tilt. The Phoenix Hawk 2K it's listed as a striker, but it's got some pretty decent damage and movement. So Phoenix Hawk 2K is a nice bread and butter mech that I like to use. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the Wolf Trap and the Phoenix Hawk.
Now, is that Wolf Trap Tora unique?
Nope. The Wolf Trap Tora is in the lore. It can show you if there's a unique, it'll be in the availability. There are a couple of unique wolf traps. Like I think the bear trap is a unique.
Gotcha. I just saw that it was named, so I figured I'd ask. That goes to show you.
It has 2 different names. The wolf trap, it was originally the Tora, and then they built it specifically to counter the wolf hound mech. So they're like, oh, we'll call it the wolf trap and mess with the Fedcom. So that's why it's got the 2 names, and a few Drac mechs have that. So we're gonna add the Wolf Trap 1. Yeah, we're gonna add the Wolf Trap 1 here, and we're gonna add the Phoenix Hawk. All right, so 137 points, and it is now so I lost the basic Battle Lance, but that's fine because I still have the medium heavy Battle Lance available to me. It has the same formation bonus, so it doesn't change. So I'm gonna go ahead and select the heavy Battle Lance. So that's our first formation. Everything in this list, in this formation right here, can move 12 inches. I'm gonna have rerolls for important attacks. Everything here does at least 3 damage at medium range, so that's pretty good. That's a good battle lance. So the next thing I'm going to want to build for...
And just to make sure, any unit in this formation at any given point can use those rerolls. 1 per turn, right?
If I have a turn where I need to land every single attack, I can burn 4 of those lucky rerolls in 1 turn. 1 per mech per turn. And then I have a...
1 per mech, my bad.
Yeah, it's 1 per mech per turn, so I can't, like, miss with the Nodachi, use a lucky reroll, miss with that, be like, no, I'm gonna roll again. No, the lucky reroll is your reroll. You don't get multiple rerolls off. Yeah, no, so this is a very powerful list, because the Nodachi can come at you with 5 points of damage. Under multiple attack rolls, melee attacks, they don't roll multiple dice. They roll 1 set of dice, and you apply the whole damage off it. And that is why I love melee damage. It is high risk, but super high reward. If I can get into your rear arc, I'm doing 6 points of damage.
Oof, that's brutal.
It is really nasty. And then one thing that I like about the Wolf Trap is it has flak. If you've never fought a list that uses a lot of VTOLs in Alpha Strike, VTOLs effectively have a TMM of 5 as long as they're in the air. They have their TMM +1 for being an airborne target. I'm going to pick on the Mantis VTOL. It has 2 damage at short, 2 damage at medium range, and very light armor, very light structure. But what makes it so powerful is it's got a TMM of 4, which that's already gross. But it gets a +1 on top of that. So the flak, what the flak does is it's a -2 against airborne targets. So it's going to bring that TMM down a little bit, and it'll mitigate that airborne target modifier. So it's always good to have a little bit of flak in your lists. Cannot recommend it against it enough. Recommend it enough, rather. So we've got our main battle lance here. Next thing I want to do is I have Capture the Flag and King of the Hill Domination. So I'm going to build a Striker Lance here, because I want something mobile that can run out and grab something. My favorite Drax Striker mech is the Jenner. Gotta love it. It's a speedy little dude who can get right in people's face and do what it has to do. My favorite Jenner is the most expensive one off the top of my head. I think it's the JR7F. And in order to make it easier to find, I'm just gonna order by name, search Jenner. Yeah, the JR7F. It's about as expensive as that Phoenix Hawk we included, but I'll show you why it is so good. It's got TMM of 3, it was 14 inches, it's got 4 armor, 3 structure, and 2 damage all the way through. So this is a speedy little guy. Not the speediest, but he can take a little bit of punishment just in case that TMM doesn't come through for him. So I'm going to take the Jenner. I'm going to search JR7. There we go, JR7F. Add it to Lance Group 2. I'm going to add 2. Just because I want to make sure. I'll walk y'all through my reasoning here, but they both got a 14-inch move. Next mech I'm going to add, and I just know this off the top of my head, is the Raptor is I believe is the first Inner Sphere Omni mech. I see we got a bunch of different variants here. We are going to pick one in particular here. So this is a Striker Lance, right? He's going to be getting up close and personal. I'm going to pick the OB because it's got a decent short, medium range. It's got the same movement as the Jenners, so they can keep up with the Jenners. But we're gonna go with the OC then. And then the last mech we're gonna add is the Venom, because it would not be an MRC list without some variant of a spider. So for the last mech I picked was a Venom. Venom has a 16-inch move. We're gonna scroll down here just so I can fact check this. Yeah, Venom has a 16-inch jump move. The other 3 mechs have only 14 inches. The Striker Lance gives 75% of its formation. 75% units in the Standard Striker Cavalry Lance receive the Speed Demon Special Pilot ability. Speed Demon gives you an extra 2 inches of movement. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select Striker Lance. I will put Speed Demon on the Raptor, the 2 Jenners, which will bring them up to 16 inches of ground movement, which means they can now keep up with the Venom. And if you can see here, all these dudes, I mean, they do a little lower than average damage, 2 points of damage at short and medium. You get behind someone, you're gonna get 3 points of damage, short range, kind of mitigates it. Plus the Raptor is an Omni. So if I still have enough points left over when I finish making the list, I can throw some battle armor into the mix. So I've got a Battle Lance, I've got a Striker Lance. Let me just name these. Punchy, Battle, Speedy, Striker, Lance. The last formation I want to build for is the Command Lance. So for a Command Lance, I'm looking for requirements, must be designated as Force Commander. I need to have a 50% be Sniper, Missile Boat, Skirmisher, Juggernaut, then a Brawler, Striker, or Scout. that's fine. You know, for Battle Lance, I'm sort of just gonna wing it here, knowing what I have. It is Jihad era, so let's think about what the Drex have access to. I'm gonna pick the Sunder. I'm gonna take a Sunder. Nothing wrong with a Sunder. We all played Mech Warrior at some point. It helps that it's got some pretty nasty damage, 6 and 6.
So is there a specific criteria you look for when selecting mechs?
I base it based on the formation. So for a Striker Lance, I look for units with a Team M3 and up. They're meant to go fast. Team M3 means that they're going to have at least 14 inches of movement, and the faster the better. For a Battle Lance, I'm looking for a minimum of 3 damage across the board. 4 damage is ideal, but 3 damage means that those Battle Lance rerolls will have a meaningful effect on the game. And then for the Command Lance, I'll be honest, I don't get super specific with the Command Lance. What I look for is, what am I going to do with the bonus abilities? So I have a Sunder in here. I'm going to put Combat Intuition on him, because 6 points of damage outside of the initiative step is just nasty. I'm going to put another one of my favorite mechs in there, the Marauder 5M. But it depends on the formation. I'll tell you right now, like, I look for a specific damage point. I've built a few of these lists where every mech in the list did 3 damage. That was a very nasty list, but...
Is that like a break point to aim for with a lot of these mechs?
With a lot, yes. Yes. The other thing to be mindful of is XL engines. I usually try to avoid XL engines in Alpha Strike, just because it's going to cut your structure in half no matter what. So my Sunder, for all of his 9 armor, has 4 points of structure. He is going to die. The objective is that he is going to apply that 6 damage at least 1 or 2 times, so that he can at least make his points back before he dies. Same for the Marauder. It's only got 6 points of armor, but it does 4/4/1 damage. It's got some flak in there. So yeah, the Marauder and the Sunder, they're very powerful mechs, but you know, that damage is sort of offset by the fact that they don't have a lot of staying power. Which is why for the Commander, I'm going to pick the Crockett. Or the Katana, sorry. Kind of Drek, am I? No, I don't want the C3 one. The reason I don't want the C3 one is I haven't built this list for C3. The big difference in C3 from Alpha Strike to Classic is that you pay the C3 tax up front in Alpha Strike. It's included in the PV. At that point, all you have to do is declare what your C3 links are. That's it. So one of my biggest list building mistakes going into Southern Assault was I brought a Shadowhawk, the Shadowhawk 3K that had a C3 slave special, but I didn't have any C3 in the list. So I paid an extra 20% of the PV for that Shadowhawk just to bring him back. That, you know, I wanted it for the damage and I wanted a Shadowhawk. I didn't realize that I was paying extra for a C3 ability I wasn't taking advantage of. So that's why I'm trying to avoid C3S, C3M here. So I got the Katana, got the Marauder. This is already a pretty heavy lance, so I want to have something in there just to make sure I can keep this Command Lance bonus. I'm going to throw something a little lighter in there. I'm going to look for a medium mech. So right now I have it listed by tonnage. Let's go through here. I can throw in another Wolf Trap, I can throw in a Crab, I can throw in a Hunchback. I'm going to splurge a little. I'm going to throw a Stormcrow in there.
Ooh, fancy.
What I like about the Combine is they have some of the best access to clan mechs in the Inner Sphere. And I mean, like, not like clan Inner Sphere, but like Inner Sphere House. They have almost unparalleled access to clan mechs. And I'm going to pick a very interesting Ryukin. I'm going to pick the Foxtrot variant. In Jihad, you have plasma cannons that get invented. So now I have a mech that can apply heat damage at short, medium, and long range. So that's going to be a very powerful support mech that can run around and, through its shooting, weaken enemy mechs for follow-up attacks from the battle or command lance. So I'm at 408 points right now. So first thing I'm going to...
3 lances, right?
I've got my 3 lances. So I've got the 3 formations I'm going to want for this list. What I'm going to do now, before I add anything else, because I do want to add a couple of battle armors. At the very least, to be a blade of armor for the Sunder, and then to be a strike package for the Raptor. I'm going to go ahead and increase some skill values. I'm going to increase the skill value for the Sunder. I'm going to kick it up to skill 3, and close that out. It's going to make him a little bit more expensive, but I've got a better shot at landing those 6 points of damage now. Okay, so it kicked me up about 6 points. I'm going to skill up the Marauder, because he's got 4 points of damage. I need to make sure he's landing those. So the Marauder is skill 3. Now I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna skill up both Nodachis.
Now, would you recommend going below 3 for many mechs, or try to keep them 3 to 4 mostly?
I have been tabled by skill 2 lances. The issue is when you go to that level of skill, you get progressively more expensive. At the end of the day, as long as your list can complete the objectives that you built it for, go hog wild. For me, for this list, I'm not really building it as a tentpole list where it's got like one unit it operates around. The risk you run with putting a lot of points into a few mechs is that you will lose through action economy, meaning your opponents will have more mechs out there than you will. They'll have more actions to choose from. They have their actions spread out across multiple units, and they'll just swarm you and overwhelm you. So it's why I try and stick to 3 formations. This is pretty standard for MRC. 4 formations is ideal. I have run one list where the Drax and the Jihad have access to probably one of the best sniper mechs out there, the Warhawk, Masakari Warhawk. You've probably lost friends playing against somebody who brought a Warhawk C, 6 damage across all 3 range brackets. You kick this thing up to skill 2, park it, put it in a Fire Lance. This thing's going to go to town and just remove mechs from the board 1 turn at a time. This would be a mech that you want to kick up to skill 2 or skill 1, or even skill 0. But a skill 0 Masakari, and we're going to use the Force Builder here, just to sort of demonstrate how progressively more expensive these things get. We picked on the Masakari C. That is almost a fifth. That would be almost a fifth of the formation right there at skill 0. At skill 0, at skill 1, it's still very expensive. Skill 2, it's still very expensive. It's almost a 50% increase from the base cost.
Hey man, at skill 1, it's almost as expensive as a Charger C.
Yeah, well, the Charger C, don't want to be on the receiving end of a Charger C. It is such a nasty mech. But skill 3 is usually good. The way I think about it is I think about what the average TMM is in Alpha Strike, which is 2. So with a skill number of 3 at medium range, the TMM of 2, your average to hit roll is going to be 7, assuming there's no forests, no other modifiers involved. And 7 is pretty average. You've got a pretty good odds of hitting a 7 at most ranges. At a 4, you're hitting 8s, which are the gap between 7 and 8. Although it's just one number, when you're rolling a pair of dice, I don't know the math off the top of my head. I just know it's a lot harder to roll an 8 than it is to roll a 7.
Yeah, the difference between the 7 and 8 is actually quite big.
Yeah, there's a big difference. So you want to aim for 7. So kicking a Masakari up to skill 2, your average TMM is 2. You're going to be hitting things on 6 most of the time as long as you have a clear, unobstructed line of sight. 5 if you put him in a Fire Lance and you give it the Sniper special ability. Hey man, if you want to bring a Masakari at skill 0, be my guest. But for me, I think it's putting a lot of reliance into one mech where if it dies, you just lost a fifth of your force in one. And that's gonna hurt you more than anything else.
Gotcha. Alright, sorry about that tangent.
No, that's a good tangent to go down. You'll notice that for the most part, I've broken my list down into 30 PV brackets. And that's just because I don't want to give my opponent too many kill points just for killing one dude. The last guy I'm going to skill up before we start adding additional battle armors is going to be the Ryukin. That heat 222, it's going to be brutal. Like in Classic and Alpha Strike, there's a cap to how much heat a mech can take from an external source. In this case, it's 2 points of heat. If you're playing rules as written, all or nothing attack damage, the Ryukin's going to apply the maximum amount of heat it can in a single turn. That's why I like this Ryukin. There are a couple other mechs that do this. So now I'm at 445 points. I want to wrap this up by adding I'm going to add another formation here, or you can add it as part of the formation. It's just not going to reflect as a Nova. I'm going to create one more formation of battle armors. The Draconis Combine has access to the Inner Sphere Standard, but I'm going to use the Raiden. Or no, you know what? I'm going to use the Void Battle Armor because it's a stealth battle armor. So yeah, Void Medium Battle Armor. Let's see, I've got one that has 1 medium damage at 1 damage at medium range, 1 damage at short range, versus one that's 2 damage at short range. I'm going to pick this one just because I'm going to pick this one as the strike package for the Raptor. I'm going to mount him on the Raptor. Raptor gets up close and personal, drops the battle armors. Battle armors can run up and do an anti-mech attack on whatever they're being dropped on. And they can do 2 points of damage, get a free crit out of it as well.
Oh, that's right. With the recent change, they can move up to half their movement value, right? And if they're coming off the battle mech, they can also jump if they have jump jets.
That is correct. And the Void Medium battle armor has jump jets and stealth armor. So the turn they dismount, they're going to be very difficult to hit. And then
very difficult to hit every turn.
indeed. And then for the Sunder, I'm just going to go with Raidens. I'm going to pick a cheap variant here because I'm just bringing them for a blade of armor. I don't expect them to actually do anything. They might hang out and cap an objective once in a while. Add that to Lance Group 4. And I'm going to go ahead and just skill them down to skill 5 just to save a little bit on points. So I've still got about 27 points left over. So I can go back through at this point and I can add a couple more skill increases.
So you only have 2 units in this formation.
It's not going to get a formation bonus.
Okay, so it's technically a lance, but because it doesn't meet the requirements, it gets no formation bonus. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, if you're playing with formation movement rules, which I believe the MRC encourages, once these guys are deployed, they will count as a formation for movement purposes. Just to speak as a cheesy, sweaty metagamer here, it's nice to have a lance group like this, simply for initiative syncing reasons.
Now, how does formation initiative work? Is that how it always works in MRC? It's not 1 unit, then 1 unit, then 1 unit, then 1 unit. It's a full lance or formation that moves at a time?
You move a full formation at a time. Then it goes back to the opponent moves the other formation, their own formation. You go back and forth until all formations have moved.
So what if you had both of your battle armor mounted? Would that count?
They don't count.
Okay, they don't count. All right.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, right now, these guys don't count. But I've got enough points here. I want to go back through and see if there's anybody else I want to skill up. The Katana is going to be my commander, but he doesn't have great shooting, so I don't need to skill him up. The whole point of the Striker Lances are going to begin up close and personal, trying to get behind people, so I'm okay with the skill point they're at. I'm going to go ahead and skill up the Wolf Trap, just because of that flak ability. If I come up against someone with a helicopter, that skill 3 is going to make a big difference and take him down. So now I've got 21 points left. I got to figure out what I want to do with. So just for the purposes of having more infantry here, I am going to pick this heavy infantry here. These guys are a nice little just rear line support unit. They can dig in per MRC rules. I'll just show you why they're so good. They're literally called heavy infantry. Yeah. Here we go, heavy infantry. Almost all of the great houses have access to them. I think the exception are... Nope, Steiners have them too. Yeah, every great house has access to them. First of all, check out that armor. Holy cow. They're not going to go into force withdrawals super easily for infantry. You can dig them in to get some pretty nice bonuses, but this heat 222 is the heat at short medium range is what you're bringing them for. They're a rear line unit. You're not throwing them into combat, you're keeping them in the back, you're digging them in, they can park on an objective. So what I would do this one for the capture the flag mission, I would park it on my flag on my side. For stand up fight, I would park it at the rear line to mess with any flankers, anybody trying to come up the rear and take out a command lance or a specific unit. And for King of the Hill, I would park them on one of the objective markers on my side of the board. And then you've got them there. So they're not meant to move around. You put them on an objective and you park them. So I'm just going to keep them there. They're nice little 2-point sync. I've only got 2 points left. I'm going to kick that Raiden battle armor back up to skill 4. I'm at 499. So I got 1 point. There you go. You got yourself a 500 point list. So we'll close out of this. You can see all your bonuses here. The nice thing is now that I have 3 units here, I can give a bonus, and I'm going to pick Light Battle Lance for the infantry, because why the heck not? Infantry will get rerolls, battle armors will get rerolls. So from Jeff's, you can pick, if you're on a tablet or an iPhone, you can pick Play Mode, and it automates a lot of the stuff here. It does not... Okay, they did fix it. It'll automate the TSM edition, TSM movement edition, automates how heat works, it'll automate your TMM.
Oh man, that's handy. That's almost like flex sheets for Alpha Strike.
It's literally what it is. You got flex sheets for Alpha Strike. And you can take your damage. So in this case, Nodachi's going to take 8 points of damage. At this point, he'd be in force withdrawal for fire control. Let's say he took a fire control crit. You'll see here, it'll give you the base attack numbers. So skill plus range right here.
Gotcha, and that's your starting out. So
all you gotta do at that point is add your opponent's TMM. So it speeds up the math there. I'm gonna just reset that for us. Yes. And now if you want to print it out the traditional way, you can go here to print force, and it's gonna display a little weird here because I've got the screen formatted strangely. but what it'll do is it'll print out each lance group on one page, and it'll have a quick summary of the formation bonus. I know MRC requires you to have physical copies of your lists for tournaments, so it's good to print this out, and that way you can mark. In this case, I would mark that the Jenner, the Raptor, and the Jenners and the Raptor have Striker Lance for his formation. Or I would have a little check mark for each time I've used Battle Lance on the Battle Lance page. Or I would have for the Command Lance, I would mark who has what special ability, who's the Force Commander, etc. You can also do this, and we're going to quickly build this list out and show you how it displays in the Master Unit list Force Builder. I'm going to sort of bring it to a close there. The Master Unit list Force Builder is very basic. It doesn't have the same level of visibility as the other one. You can't build out your formations from it. You're literally just throwing everything in here and then figuring it out after, like, okay, this isn't this formation. You know, you're going to figure out your skills. So right here, we can just put this side by side with the Jeff's Battletech Tools Formation Builder. I can clearly see what formation it is. I can see what mechs are in the formation. I can see some of their special abilities. I can see what the formation bonus is. Like I said, I can't recommend Jeff's Battletech enough. Jeff's Battletech Tools enough for this.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. For the longest time, I'd only been using the MUL until I recently learned of Jeff's. And it's been a big change, especially when building for the MRC.
And the other thing is I can save these formations. You can see I have a few on the side here that are saved for my C3 lists. So I can save this Battle Lance, and it's going to appear down here, so I can just pop it in. I'm actually going to keep that lance. So, yeah, you know, I've got a list here that it's going to be able to compete well in stand-up fight because I've got a lot of damage to throw around. For Capture the Flag, I've got a very fast Striker Lance. I can get in and out and take those flags. And then for King of the Hill, I mean, the slowest formation I have here is the Command Lance, and even then, I've got the Ryukin, which can move 12 inches. The Marauder, the Sunder both move 8. And the Katana's a little slow, but that's fine because he's the commander. He's not meant to get into combat with a 6-inch move. And I've got the infantry here for support. I feel like this would be a very solid list for these objectives. Now, to talk sort of about the weaknesses here, it's not a very tanky list. The Nodachi, Sunder, the Raptor, and the Marauder and the Ryukin all have XL engines, meaning they don't have a lot of structure. Meaning, which, you know, sort of break that down, once their armor is gone, they're either going to die or they're going to get put into force withdrawal very quickly. Like I said, I usually try and do my best to avoid XL engines in Alpha Strike, but it's fine. It's fine. It's just a fun, timey list here.
Gotcha. And this is just a basic overview of how to build a list. I mean, we can get real complicated and be real nitpicky and start fluctuating your unit skills a lot and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I want, we can go into building a C3 list, but we don't have the time for that. I mean, for C3, you got to have ECM, you got to have counter ECM. It turns into, all right, you're sacrificing spotters each turn to get that C3 range bonus. But I guess I can go through the other questions here. Question number 5, what is the first thing you think of when building a list? I talked about that already. You want to know what your list wants to accomplish, what your objectives are, what you're going in to do, and build towards that. So if you want to be able to get to your objectives, you want to be able to, if your objective is just kill the crap out of someone, you just want to bring a list that can apply damage and take the damage back. For this one, since it's going to be 3 missions we're building for, I have to sort of keep it varied across all 3.
Gotcha. And then we already kind of went over what the best formation bonus would be, and it kind of depends on what kind of list you want to build. Although Command Lance is kind of hard to pass up.
Command
Lance get 3 SPAs basically.
You get 3 SPAs, and there's some really powerful ones in there, and it gives you an initiative reroll. We've all been there where you lost initiative to a roll of 5. Being able to reroll that, it's a game changer.
You can do that once every other turn, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's quite valuable throughout the course of the game, as long as you keep your commander alive.
Yep, and you keep your command lance fairly intact. And then, what is the biggest lesson you've learned in your time building lists? I guess the biggest lesson I learned, and it's not just necessarily in building the list, it's in actually executing the list and the plan, is don't be afraid to take losses. There have been times where I moved a mech knowing damn well someone was going to put a fire moth in the rear arc, or knowing that someone was going to put a fast mech, or someone was going to take advantage of that. It's going to happen. You're going to lose a formation. You're going to lose mechs. Don't be afraid of it. I know right here these Nodachis are going to be priority targets. And that's fine, because I've got the Phoenix Hawk and the Wolf Trap who can apply damage as the Nodachis are closing on their targets. I've got the Striker Lance who are going to be going fast. They're going to be being able to get in under their guns, getting behind people while those Nodachis are taking fire. I've got the Sunder, the Ryukin, and the Marauder who can also apply damage, and they can, knowing how your opponent is going to react to your list is it's a really good lesson to learn early on. Get out there, throw some lists together, go play with your friends, figure out what works for you and what doesn't. I like melee. I've got a buddy who likes indirect fire. I've got another buddy who really likes heat. As long as you have a clear objective in what your list is trying to accomplish, it's really hard to build a bad formation. Now, if you go in there saying like, well, I want a Marauder, I want a Warhammer, I want an Atlas, and you're just picking mechs, you're going to struggle a little bit just because you're just throwing together what you got. Build with a purpose, know what you're trying to accomplish, and, list will come together on its own.
All right, I think that about covers everything that we had questions about. Is there anything else you want to add to the end there, or is that pretty much it, Comrade?
Yeah, my family was on Turtle Bay, and I say kill them all.
Comrade, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us. I really appreciate it. Hopefully everybody who gets a chance to watch this will appreciate it. Smash that like, subscribe, whatever, comment below kind of thing. But any parting comments, either Jesty or Comrade?
Yeah, I can't wait to start building lists now that I know how to use Jeff's Battletech tools properly and how to search by filters in the master unit list, which I had never done before up to this point. I always just scroll through the massive list of units.
Yeah, that was big. I really liked the way Comrade walked us through the master unit list. I've done some of the things that he had done. I had no idea that you had to include general to get the full part, so that was huge for me, so I really appreciate that.
I would just say, don't be afraid to lose. I lost a lot. I still lose. So you learn more from losing than you do winning. My very humble Drac opinion. Awesome. Well, thanks for listening to me, listening to my unhinged rants. My Discord DMs are always open, so feel free to reach out and blow me up and throw lists my way. I'm happy to give list criticism, and not criticism, but constructive list criticism.
Hey, maybe we'll have you back for Pimp My List Alpha Strike Edition or something.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Pirate's probably one of my favorite people to play against, so I'd love that.
All right, well, thank you so much, Jesty. Thank you so much, Conrad, and I hope you guys all enjoy the video. Have a good one.